I honestly hope that anybody who watches this docuseries comes away with eyes wide open and a new sense of victims, a new sense of abuse, a new sense of consent.
What was your reaction when you found out what was going on with Armie? When all those texts and allegations from the women came forward, what was your reaction to that?
I honestly was not surprised or shocked because, again, based on how I grew up, I was exposed to horrific crimes and experiences that, again, were covered up because it was behind closed doors and we couldn't talk about it. So for this to surface, I thought, oh, here we go, another hammer man, another byline, whatever. What upset me was the fact that they were focusing on Armie and cannibalism and his career. And it was, what about the victims that he's left in this path? I mean, again, whether it's physical, mental, or any kind of abuse, it takes a toll on you. And you need to know that there's others out there like you who are experiencing the same thing, and there is hope. I mean, I'm living proof that I can live through all that, because of time constraints, we could only do 3 hours, but there was a lot more, right? And you never know, it's a person's journey, why they're still here. But for me, when the Zen Blonde outed me, and then again, watching House of Hammer and seeing how well it was done and how important it is, it really gave me a reason to say, this is my purpose. This is to continue the story, to continue the conversation, to advocate for victims and survivors, and to let them know, if nothing else, they're not alone and they're heard, because really that's all people are looking for, is to be validated and believed.
Right. And, obviously we learned so much about your family history and, the treatment of women, murder, scandal, everything that has gone on. I mean, now in this time, do you think Armie should be prosecuted for what has happened to these women?
In all honesty, I think that anybody that commits crimes and involves other people and hurts them needs to be held accountable and I believe in the justice system. So I'm hoping that, no matter what, that just by shining a light on it, one, it stops, and two, he has to answer for whatever the accusations or allegations, or, again, people don't make this up. When you listen to these women in the docuseries, it's real. You can feel the emotions. You can feel it through the camera, and it's powerful. I would hope that by shining a light and bringing it, that the justice system takes care of it however it sees fit. But again, it's not right. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there have been reports that Armie is working as a timeshare salesman in the Cayman Islands. What was your reaction to that? Do you have any relationship with him, his wife, his children? And how do you think that they are probably coping with this situation?
I'm sure that, it's challenging for everybody involved. Again, when my mom passed 14 years ago, that was the last interaction I've had with everyone. And up until that point, we were somewhat of a dysfunctional family who fake cared about each other. So I know, based on my grandfather and growing up in the public eye, that you basically had a PR image. Yeah. And then you had a behind the closed doors image. So I'm hoping, when I hear PR spin, I mean, who knows? I also heard from the press that he's in LA. I've heard that he's in Rome having dinner. So, there's Armie Hammer broke, and then there's real people broke. So it's like, what do you believe? What do you know? It's all relative in a sense of, none of this should be happening. And again, focus on the victims, focus on helping them, and finding a way to empower them to heal and to, be okay, because those are the people that are most affected by all this. And those are the people that need to know that it's okay to come forward.
If Armie watches this docuseries, what do you hope he takes away from it?
I honestly hope that anybody who watches this docuseries comes away with eyes wide open and a new sense of victims, a new sense of abuse, a new sense of consent, a new sense of accountability, just an overall people behaving badly and stopping the cycle.
Why was now the right time for you to do this? I know you wrote the book, but why was now the right time to talk about this on camera?
I think in all honesty, when my nephew imploded on social media last year and just with his bad behavior, it shined a light on the family and something I had been living with for 61 years and talking about, and no one necessarily wanted to listen or believe. And so, for instance, it was a lot of the press reached out to me back then to get a soundbite. And again, once they found out he had an aunt and wanted to know, and that was not the path or the journey I wanted to take. He was going to mess up his life on his own. I wanted to be more of a positive advocate for victims and kind of help share my story. When I first wrote the book 7 years ago, it was something I did journaling and healing for myself, because I couldn't make sense of how I lived all this trauma, as you saw in House of Hammer, and my mom knew it was happening and everyone went along with it. It's like, how, as a child, do you not get protected? And so you think that that's normal behavior. So you don't necessarily, because I didn't have social media growing up, it's not like I could go next door and knock on the door and say, gee, is your family as messed up as mine? You know, because you couldn't even share it outside the family. It was all about image and control and power. So it was interesting when I first wrote the book. I had self-published it. So I was in control of the narrative, right? It wasn't like, I mean, a few people would read it and it would help them. And I thought, wow, this is powerful. And then I was living in San Diego quietly as a kitchen designer at Home Depot. And last year, a coworker said, Casey, you better check out TikTok because someone named the Zen Blonde is outing you. And all of a sudden, I watched someone within 2 hours live read my book. And it was fascinating. I went from 5 followers to 5,000 followers in that. And I saw the power of social media. And I believe truly that thanks to the Zen Blonde and the universe giving me an opportunity to say, all right, time's up in a sense. How do you want to live your life? It was kind of like, I really want to help people. And how is that going to show up? And what's that going to mean? And you just kind of have to blindly jump into the abyss and pray that you come out at the other end. And that's when the producers reached out to me and said, we read your book. We want to tell your story. And it was how I would tell it if I could, right? And it was something that, and then as you see all the people that were involved in the process, I mean, oh my God, how brave those victims were that came forward, the people that spoke on my behalf or on the family's behalf, just corroborating a lot of what I experienced. It was so empowering and impactful in the way they handled all aspects of it. It was, you know, again, I don't know what you're expecting when you tune in to watch it, but I guarantee you after 3 hours of watching House of Hammer, your whole life's going to be impacted and changed, and you're going to be infuriated at a sense of, how is this even happening now? And how come we're now hearing about it? I mean, again, unless my nephew would have implode or didn't implode last year, none of this would still be surfacing. So
no, you're
again,
so right.
For me, it's holding people accountable and saying no more. It's got to stop.